Hey, ladies and gentlemen, KocoSports.com proudly presents 5 stars or better. Got your host here, Boom Boom and Dave Coco, and we are on a mission now. We are reviewing every match, ranked 5 stars or better by professional wrestling journalist Dave Meltzer. And Coco, this week we actually wind up on the first ever women's match to get 5 stars or better. We got a match from All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling, or Zenjo, as it was called, which is the Japanese word for women, by the way. A match it was for the AAW Championship. You had the champion, Jaguar Yokota, versus the Lioness Asuka. This happened in August of 1985 at the Summer Night Festival in Budokan. And Coco, real quick, off the top, why, if people are following this podcast or they're just getting in it for the first time, why should people care about this match?
Well, there's a lot you can learn from this. Growing up as an American fan, you thought women's wrestling was a joke. It was presented as a joke. A lot of these people that are wrestling now, the women's movement in every company possible, seem just like 30 plus years late, if not more. This showed that it wasn't for their looks. It wasn't for TNA. It wasn't for anything but great wrestling. And the thing I got out of this the most is I met a lot of Japanese female wrestlers, and they despise and hate American pro wrestling. And now I know why. If you were doing this in the 80s, can you imagine putting on matches like this with this crowd in the 80s and then going to see what they're doing in America? You would just, it would fucking hurt you. You know what I mean?
So what you're saying is it was a good match.
I think it was a great match. You know, it wasn't a perfect match, and we'll get into that as we go along. But it opened my eyes, you know, because we grew up where, man, when did you start seeing good women's wrestling in America?
Probably
I don't know, maybe TNA?
Probably within the last 10 years.
Yeah. So,
I mean, yeah, people are always going, well, what about Trish? Well, what about Lita? Well, what
they
about
were god-awful. They were just hot.
Yeah, it was better for the time.
Yeah.
For its time. It was good for its time. But, I mean, look, within the last 10 years, that's when women's wrestling, where it's not being presented as a joke, when it's just not 2 or 3 girls that can actually wrestle, face each other. We're talking like stacked top to bottom, putting on good, compelling matches that people actually want to see. Not, okay, here's the pee break. No, this is like people anticipate seeing this match. So within the last 10 years, that's happened in the United States. Now, Coco, I need to set the stage for everybody here. So if you would, I'm going to put the context to this. Like I said, this match was for the AAW Championship. Now, I had to do a little research on All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. Now, this has absolutely nothing to do with Giant Baba's All Japan Pro Wrestling. You know, for the men, we reviewed a tag match earlier on in this series, a couple of matches from All Japan earlier on in this series, but this has nothing to do with that federation. This federation was founded in 1968, and it featured only women, and it largely took off. Now, when this match took place in '85, this was when arguably this promotion was at its peak, because they peaked around '84, '85, and this was, I mean, they were drawing in people left and right. And I'll get into more kind of what ultimately happened, but I want to let everybody know that, you know, when this is going on, this is the peak. And now I'm going to talk about the competitors. First, I'm going to talk about the champion, Jaguar Yokota. Now, she started roughly in 1977 at 15. She was 19 when she won her first ever championship in February of 1981. She was just an amazing star. I'm going to kind of get into more what happened to her after the match, but she was a very solid champion, very reliable. is if you check out the match, you can see how reliable she was in the ring. And then we got to go to her opponent, Lioness Asuka. Now I know some people are like, Asuka, is that no, no, it's not the same woman, but it is
If
where
that was the case, I'd like to know how she stays young for so long.
exactly. It has nothing to do with WWE superstar Asuka, but this is where she got her name. When Kana, as she was known in Japan, signed with WWE, went over to NXT, she had to pick a new name. So she named herself Asuka after the Lioness Asuka. And I can't really talk about the Lioness Asuka without talking about her and her tag team partner. Now, Asuka joined All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling in 1980. She was an immediate success. She had held the championship in 1982. And then she got together with a woman by the name of, and I'm going to try to pronounce this, and if I screw this up, I apologize, Chigusa Nagawa, and they formed a tag team called the Crush Gals in 1983. And to say they were over would be an understatement, Coco. These ladies were, I mean, they kept drawing people in, like attendance wise, but they were also, believe it or not, pop stars. And I'm not making this up because when I saw this, I actually looked up video and I went on Discogs.com and I found out that their first single that they released, like a duo here. They sang some songs, but their first single they ever released sold 100,000 copies. They released four LPs between 1984 and 1987: Square Jungle, Healthy, Twin Beat, and Forever. And they actually drove the success of All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling. In fact, after the Crush Gals debuted and were picking up, they actually, when they held tryouts, this was, I want to say around 85, around 84, 85, the same time when this is going on, they drew in 2,000 women trying to audition or to try out for this promotion. So to say that these two girls were over would be an understatement. So that's the stage I'm setting for you, Coco. So
Yeah, it would be like the Beatles forming the NWO. It would be, you know what I mean? It would be like, I don't know, who even sells a lot of music these days? It would be like, damn, who does sell a lot of music these days? Do you guys still make music? I don't know. A couple years ago, Eminem was pretty hot. It would be like him joining, AEW. So yeah, this was huge, and not only that, but they could go.
all right, and so that's the stage I want to set for you. So Coco, they do the introductions. The streamers flying everywhere. The crowd. I mean, it's a packed house. Arguably, it's a packed house. I don't know if it's sold out, but they start this match. And see, Coco, when I do this, I take notes. And when I watched this, they did a quick handshake, and then they were boom. They shot at each other like bullets out of a gun. I mean, it started off fast paced. The crowd's going insane already. They hadn't even started really, and it almost looked like a lucha style at the beginning, very acrobatic. They started feeling each other out, uh, and then they kind of once the crowd was kind of like, okay, here they go. They're touching each other. They're fighting here. They did some quick flips and stuff. Boom! They immediately go to grappling. And now this reminds me so much like today of the current New Japan Pro Wrestling grappling style, where you had Jaguar working over Asuka's legs, working over something like almost like an Indian deathlock or a Texas Cloverleaf style type of lock or a figure four style type of lock. They started working on the legs, and they would get to a rope break, boom, go back to the legs. They would go back on, anyway, Jaguar would go back on offense. Oscar would take over. It would go fast paced. They go boom, slow it right back down to a chin lock. They would go. There was one where Oscar reversed, managed to squirm out of that leg lock, and then put uh, Jaguar in an arm bar. They were flipping back and forth trying to get out of it. They were working back, and then but Jaguar would get out of it and go right, boom, go right back to Asuka's legs. The crowd was just chanting. Almost every time that Asuka would get some offense in, the crowd would erupt. And anytime she was in trouble, they'd start chanting her name. It was then started to resemble like a submission style match because they kept trying to work, arm bars, legs, etc. Uh, they even tried a butterfly lock and a hip attack. There was one moment where they took a break where Jaguar hit a abdominal stretch like maneuver on Asuka, managed to roll up and get a 2 count. They hit a jackhammer in there, good enough for a 2. And then they had an interesting spot here where Jaguar locked the figure 4 on Asuka. The crowd was just losing it because they didn't want their hero to tap out. They didn't want her to submit. Asuka's just really selling the pain. The crowd's just chanting her name, trying to get her back into it. And then Asuka reverses the figure 4. Now Jaguar's in pain. Oh no, she's the one. And now they're basically telling her to tap. They want her to give up. And then Jaguar fires back, and she reverses the reversal. And then boom, now Asuka's back in trouble. They managed to break that up with a rope break. Asuka starts stomping on Jaguar, attacking the legs, starts dropping elbows. Jaguar just takes a powder on the outside. Asuka just waits for her. Jaguar comes back in with a single leg takedown and starts working over that leg again. They keep trying to do the pin. There's a big boot in there. Let me fast forward a little bit more to the match. Uh, we got a we got a sloppy German by Jaguar Yokota, but it's only good enough for a 2. Asuka countered with a jackknife pin. That was good enough for a 2. The match starts picking up here. Asuka hits a sunset flip for a 2. They go to the corner, shrugs off Asuka, then boom, double underhook. And believe it or not, this happened in 1985. Jaguar hit a Gonzo bomb on Asuka. That was good enough for a 2. And then they fired back with a tombstone pile driver. Boom, that was nope, and that was good enough for a 2. Uh, Crowd is just absolutely losing it. Now they're throwing kicks. There was a pump kick by Asuka on Jaguar for good enough for a 2 count. She uh, Jaguar tries to go off the top rope with a cross body. She gets caught. She gets thrown in an airplane spin, gets slung down by the Lioness. The Lioness then hooks up her legs. Boom, swings her around for a giant swing. That's something that would put Cesaro to shame. They did a standing reverse switch. Asuka tossed Jaguar out of the ring, and then instead of waiting this time, she did a tope through the middle rope, crash with burn, by the way, absolutely missed her. And then they're both on the outside. I thought, oh God, please tell me this is not going to end in another double count out or something. But to their credit, Asuka got back in, and then she grabbed Jaguar by the hair. She was still on the outside and brought her back in with a suplex. That was good enough for a 2. And then Asuka follows up with a German suplex for a bridge. That was good enough for a 2. They lock up. Jaguar spins her around, hits her with a straight jacket German. That was good enough for a 2. Crowd's going insane, and then Jaguar's going to take a risk. She's going to go to the top rope. Asuka blocks her, basically just picks her up. It almost gives her like a flapjack from the top rope. Then she goes for broke. She goes for a diving knee, something like Togi Makabe would do. Misses it. Jaguar hits her with a backdrop suplex. That was good enough for a 3. Streamers fly. Crowd is absolutely insane. Coco, when
Yeah.
I when I tell you that I take notes, at the very top, here's what I wrote: 30 years too soon.
Yeah. Well, not, I don't know. Maybe it should be written another thing. 30 years too late for America. Um, the fast-paced beginning was amazing. The middle of the match slowed down, but the selling made up for it. The throw to the outside, just fucking, it was amazing, even to today's standards. The flapjack off the top rope was good. It had a cool ending that kind of came out of nowhere, and the fans made it better. The fans were really, really into this. Boom, boom. Have you noticed these 5-star matches? The respectful, quiet Japanese fans are having a time of their lives and cheering.
Yeah, a lot of these ones. If you give them a reason to cheer, they will cheer.
Yeah. Overall, I thought it was amazing. And then the pile driver, man, how crazy they did a pile driver where she hit the ropes. That was awesome. So
I mean,
yeah,
but dude, a Ganzo bomb, and this is 1985, a Ganzo bomb.
yeah,
And then not only did she kick out of it, She scooped up their opponent again for a tombstone pile driver. It got reversed, and then boom, hit. Then I think it was Asuka hit a tombstone pile driver her own. So that keeps the streak going for pile drivers.
Yeah, well, we might see. What if Meltzer just has a thing for pile drivers? Like they're like there's gonna be a 5-star match where it's pile driver Dan versus pile driver Sam, and they're just gonna pile drive each other forever. Yeah, I enjoyed this match tremendously. Boom Boom always asks if you think it'd still be 5 stars today. I think it would be, but I think they would shorten up that middle part. And that middle part of the match where it slows down and they're selling, if the audience isn't into it, that dies. If you do that in an indie event and there's not a big crowd, you just killed it. You can only do that when you're crazy over and the fans care so much. So I think this would be a 5-star match. I just think with today's audience, especially the women's audience disappeared compared to these days. Yeah, I think this is still a 5-star match. I really do. I just think in today's world they would have shortened that middle part up.
I actually didn't mind that middle part where they were working the legs and the armbar spots. I did not mind it because the ladies were selling it. The crowd was still into it because anytime, like I said at the top of the podcast here, anytime that Asuka was in trouble, they start chanting her name, trying to wheel her out of it. Anytime she started getting some offense in, try to grind down the champion, they were just going crazy. They were losing their minds. So I don't mind it too much. It served its purpose, and plus it slowed things down because you got their attention immediately with that fast-paced acrobatic start. Then they slowed it down. They started grinding it, and then they took it down and they started building it up. I love the figure 4 spot where they figure 4, reverse the figure 4. Now figure 4 has been reversed again. That I just think that was brilliant. I think that would still work today. Now, did it deserve 5 stars then? Yes. Would it still get 5 stars now? Yes. I think if we just took the same match, like we became computer experts and we CGI'd the fuck out of this to where it looked cleaned up, it didn't look like it was done in 1985. We digitally remastered it and we put this on NXT, we put this on AEW, we put this on TNA, we put this on Ring of Honor. People would still love it and they would lose their damn minds. So I think it's really well deserved. So now, Coco, unless you got any parting thoughts, I got to give the epilogue to what happened with everybody here, where everybody went from here.
No, the thing is, I'm just gonna nail this at home. Nail this point home, is that for the longest time, being a wrestling guy, a sports reporter, traveling back and forth a lot from Japan to America, I would meet these Japanese female wrestlers and they would drill home that's bullshit. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And if this was happening in the 80s, this happened in 85, they might have a point, Yeah, I just, man, what could have been? What could have been all those great memories we could have had? But yeah, overall, I enjoyed it a lot, and the fan base, I don't know. It's 5 stars. Meltzer hit a home run with this one. It's 5 stars. All right, hot tag to you, Booms.
Yeah, it's a 5 star. I think had a lot of, again, this is 1985. We don't have the internet. I don't know if tape trading was a big deal in 85. I think it was probably not as mainstream, but I think if some of the American promotions would have seen this, I think maybe they could have seen that, women's wrestling could be taken seriously. It could be a draw, and you didn't have to have it be a sideshow. You didn't have to basically be a glorified cat fight. But that was just, it was just the attitudes. And plus, you got to look who was in charge at the U.S. Pretty much like, and this is not an insult because this is not the time or the place for that. But when the best you had over here in the United States was the fabulous Moolah, and she was training women to not basically couldn't do more than what she could do. You're already starting in a hole to begin with. But again, I'm not here to throw shade on anybody. I'm just saying, just in general. Now, as far as what happened here, now, did you notice how I said that, by the crowd reaction, that these girls were over, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All Japan Women's Pro Wrestling had this insane rule where there was mandatory retirement at 26.
That's
Like,
dumb as fuck.
oh, oh yeah, they found that out the hard way because here's what happened. Remember, the crush gals are super over, and there was a mandatory thing. Once you turn 26, you were done, and that actually happened in 1986. So they turned, I think both of them turned 26, but anyway, they stepped away in 1986, and their popularity started to cool off. And then you started, you kind of had a problem because, see, at that time, AJW was the only women's promotion in town. Well, right after that, in '86, Japan Women's Pro Wrestling formed, and then basically, and then later some other promotions started forming. You had Ladies Legend Pro Wrestling, uh, JPW, as I mentioned, they're formed. Big Egg Wrestling Universe formed, and I think it's Gaia, GAEA, Japan formed, and then JD Star formed. Now, some of these were fly by night; they were only around for a few years, but that was part of the problem. When you're no longer the only game in town, and then now you've got some places, for these women to go, you've just hurt yourself because now this would be like, uh,
Well, this is very common in Japan today.
mhm,
Like, there's so much pro wrestling, and they break it up by so much that you don't even know. Like, when I first moved here, I was like, man, I'm gonna cover all the pro wrestling. Dude, I can't even cover all the pro wrestling on Wednesday night. And I'm not saying, not American,
mhm.
just here. Like right now, it's 9 o'clock p.m. when we're recording this Friday night. In the Tokyo area alone, there has to be at least 30 plus wrestling shows going on. And yeah, it's just insane, you know? Um, but yeah, so it is what it is, and I guess it's
Yep.
always going to be that way.
So, okay, to kind of give this comparison, this would be like WWE. Let's just say we go back to the Monday Night Wars, and let's just say WWF said, you know what, we want to be the promotion of just young, fresh talent. We want to be the future. We want to be up and comers. Only so once you hit 30, you got to retire. You can't wrestle for us anymore. And then WCW comes along, gets created, and goes, you know what? We don't think that's right. I mean, if you can still go and you still want to wrestle, we'll be more glad to have you. In fact, and then Hulk Hogan turns 30, and then he goes to WCW. And then the Macho Man turns 30, then he goes to WCW. Congratulations, you've just created a feeder league. Now what happens is you take these stars and develop them from the ground up. So basically, all the ring rust, all the inexperience, you do all that hard work, and then they become stars. You make them retire, and now you have another promotion now where they can go play their straight and still and take fans with them. But anyway, after the Crush Gals left, uh, the whole just the whole popularity of AGW started to go down. They kind of realized that the retirement thing, especially with all the new games in town, was counterproductive because basically they were just being a feeder league for their competition. It was kind of like when Hulk Hogan jumped ship from AWA to WWF. They basically created their own biggest competition. So they got rid of the mandatory retirement rule in 1993, but the damage had been done. Uh, AJW had filed for bankruptcy in 1997 because of the real estate crash, and they had a hard time paying people. So 14 of their talents defected after that in 1997. In fact, they lost their TV deal in 1997, and they would wind up losing it again in 2002. Ultimately, the women's AJW would close its doors for the final time in 2005. And just something notable to mention here is that they only had three non-Japanese women to be champion. And just as a little nugget here, the last one that was not the one that was not a Japanese talent was the Amazing Kong. So that's a little interesting tidbit. As far as what happened to the competitors, now Jaguar Yokota, she wound up retiring at in 1994 because of a shoulder injury. She had not hit the mandatory retirement age. She was injured, but she became a trainer for the promotion. And one of the talents that she trained was Manami Toyota. And the reason I mention her is because we're going to be hearing a little bit about her in the future in this series. And she would stay retired and then until 1994 when Bison Kimura, they came out and they did a match with Big Egg Wrestling Universe where they would go to a time limit draw with the Lioness Asuka and Yumi Ogura. She would go back in retirement, but she came back again in 1995 for her promotion. I mentioned this earlier was JD Star. She started that. She was with that till 1998. Retired. She's on the by the way she's on the Terry Funk retirement program. I should mention this. But she came back again in 2004 as a freelancer, and
With
she
all her
married.
comebacks, she's definitely learning something from Terry Funk.
I don't know. She came back in 2004, but mainly worked as a freelancer. She wound up marrying the singer in a hardcore band, and last I heard, she still works like for a faction with Hustle. I think it's Jaguar Y, but so she had one hell of a career. Now, as far as the Lioness Asuka, uh, she would actually feud with her tag team partner, and they would eventually in 1998 she would go see her tag team partner Chigusa Nagawa formed the I'm going to say Gaia. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. GAEA, Gaia Japan. And this time Asuka came in as the heel, won a match where she could take some creative control or whatever, and basically formed her own faction. That was in 1998. She retired in 2005, but they did have a send off. The Crush Cows reunited in Crush 2000, and they beat Chikayo Nagashima and Sugar Saito in one last match. And what could have been? I think it was a hell of a career. I think they both had hell of a careers. Both ladies in this were, and I really wish that people knew more about them.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, man, it's just Japan makes so many stupid rules. Like for those that haven't lived here for 15 years, they just always have weird rules. Because the thing is, they probably saw it like pop stars. Like a lot of the AKB 48 girls can only go to a certain age. They just have it, you know.
It's funny you should mention that because I didn't write it down, but they actually did have a legit pop star as a wrestler. She was an idol singer, and she also did wrestling. So
Yeah.
she did both. She did both, and she was only able to do the wrestling part of it for about 3 years. Trying to keep up with with both schedules. But and then plus there was another couple in there called the Beauty Pair. They actually inspired an anime called the Dirty Pair. So I mean, they were very influential. They were very much tapped into pop culture at the time.
Well, yeah, but back then it was. That's why, like, you go back and a lot of these pro wrestlers today are big time celebrities here in Japan because they just cross promoted them. Like what Jericho's doing in America now was been done for a long time. Like most of my Japanese friends know Chono as a celebrity. Like, oh yeah, he also wrestled. So they really do the cross promotion stuff really good here, and it goes well for them.
So I guess we need to put a bookend on this one, but this was the first women's match to get 5 stars or better. That's got a 5 from Dave Meltzer, and I think it deserves every bit of it. And we're going to put a link to this match down here in our description, and I would really encourage everybody to check it out.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the cool thing. I imagine with us doing this show, we're gonna get the old, well, where do we watch it? So hopefully the links we provide are work. That's what it works now when we post it. Will it work 10 years from now? Because for those that don't know, we've been doing this for a long time, and you have no idea. We still get people messaging. I got a message the other day. It's like, "Where's Raw from 1927?" It's like, bro, I don't fucking know, man. But yeah, we'll put links in it, and hopefully they'll be active by the time you are watching this.
All right. Well, Coco, I guess it's time to do some shameless plugs here. First, I'm going to thank everybody for listening to us, and I'm going to tell everybody if you want to check out more about us, about the show, check out KocoSports.com, KocoSports.com. It's your home for combat sports, where the world goes to kick ass, and most importantly, where it's okay to be a passionate fan. Also, check out our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages. You can send us messages there. Also, visit DaveCoco.com. He's got all kinds of merch, including he's got 2 novels there, Operation Freak Show, not for the faint of heart, and then he's got Lucky the Orphan, which is made for young adults. So if you're looking for something a little bit on the lighter side, I would highly recommend Lucky the Orphan. You can also check out Dave. He's streaming on Twitch TV. It's Twitch TV/KocoSports, again, KOCO Sports. He's also playing sports games and Fall Guys very poorly, but he's playing it there. And Coco, the next match we've got coming up here, we're going to go back. We're going to stay in Japan. We've got one more match to do in Japan. We're going to do another All Japan match, and this is another tag team match. And then we're going to take a break temporarily, and then go back to the United States for another series of matches. So it should be a lot of fun.
I kind of wonder, like, obviously Japan and America probably have the most 5-star matches, but I wonder how many are in Europe or Mexico and the rest of the world. It's going to be interesting when we go down this list. Booms, thank you for the good idea, and also big thank you for those don't know. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. every day, and I was a little sleepy, but I appreciate Booms carrying me. So much love. Like, comment, subscribe, and with that, I am over. Hey,